JesssFam. Today's video, we're gonna be talking about these guys. These bad boys. More specifically, we're gonna be talking about what they do, and that is breastfeeding. I think I just spit a little bit. So if you guys don't know, I breastfed all 5 of the kids that I birthed. I breastfed for almost 9 consecutive years. 9 years, that's a long time to be breastfeeding. Obviously, they were different children. I didn't breastfeed one kid for 9 years, although to each their own. And I get this question asked all the time. How did you do it? How did you breastfeed your kids? How do you make it look so easy? And I'm here to try to answer those questions. I'm just gonna be completely honest with you guys. Like, this is just gonna be so like cut and dry. What I did personally that worked for myself. I'm no breastfeeding expert, although I'd like to consider myself one because I've had so much experience with it, but I'm not. I'm not a doctor. Obviously, we all know the benefits of breastfeeding. However, the way I feel about it is as long as your baby's being fed and thriving, I don't really care what goes into the baby's body. Okay, that's a little extreme. Like, if you're doing bad, okay, you guys know what I mean, right? Rewind 9 years ago. Just a little backstory if you guys are new here. I was a teen mom. I had my first child at 18 years old, and I breastfed her for about a year. Then I got pregnant with the twins immediately after I was done breastfeeding her, or while I was breastfeeding her. I can't remember the exact timeline now. I might have still been breastfeeding. So I guess I should say I've been pregnant or breastfeeding, or pregnant and breastfeeding over the last 9 years. I did breastfeed through some of my pregnancies. I had twin boys when I was 20 years old. I did exclusively breastfeed them. However, Kyson, which was twin A, he breastfed for 15 months, and Kaden breastfed for 2.5 years. Kyson actually weaned himself when I got pregnant with my 4th child. Kaden, the other twin, breastfed completely through my pregnancy and after until my 4th baby was 6 months old. So this might get a little confusing. I got pregnant with my 4th child, was still breastfeeding throughout my entire pregnancy, and then I gave birth to him, where I tandem nursed both a 2-year-old and an infant. My 2.5-year-old eventually weaned himself, and I continued to breastfeed Landon for another 2 years. And then I got pregnant with my 5th child, Adeline, and last child, let me say. I stopped nursing him like pretty much right when I got pregnant with her, and then I breastfed her until she was almost 2. So I've done a lot of breastfeeding. I actually never had to supplement with any sort of formula, bottles, nothing. The only time that I really had to pump was when I was going to school full-time, which was mostly with Lilia, my oldest, and then a little bit with some of the other kids. So I've been very fortunate to not have to go like straight back to a job where I had to leave the baby at home. So yeah, here's my tips. Being a teen mom, there are so many judgments that come with that, and I was determined to prove them wrong. One of those stereotypes were that you weren't gonna breastfeed your kid. Like I said, if you choose to not breastfeed, there's nothing wrong with that either, but personally for me, it was very important for me to try to breastfeed. I really wanted to breastfeed it. I was lucky enough to have a lot of support from my mom, who breastfed both me and my brother, but my main tip for you guys, make sure you get the right latch. 110%. That baby's mouth needs to be wide open. You don't just want to get the nipple in their mouth, you want to get the whole, as much as you, sorry, I'm like such a visual person. I hope you guys don't mind. We're talking about boobs though, so I guess it doesn't matter. I would literally grab my boob like this and the baby's head like this and shove it sounds a little extreme. When the baby's hungry, they will go like this. It's called, there's a word for it, but my brain has gone a little bit more with each of my children. Rooting, that's what it is. Your baby will start rooting like this, and when your baby's mouth is at its max, you want to shove as much as you can of your boob into the baby's mouth. You want to get as much of your areola, which is the surrounding area of your nipple, into your baby's mouth as you can. This is so important. If you cannot get the right latch, you will have problems. Not only is it gonna hurt more, but your baby's gonna probably eat less. The breast won't be as sufficient. If you just cannot figure it out, please don't be afraid to get help. There are lactation consultants. You can call your hospital and ask them if they have any recommendations for one. If you have a friend, don't be afraid to ask them. Some of my friends have come to me for breastfeeding support, and I have no problem sitting there with their boob in my hand and their baby's head in my hand and helping them figure it out. Us moms, we're a community, and it's so sad to see so many moms like comparing themselves to other people, and it's not a competition. I mean, message me and I'll try to help you. Try to not ever compare yourself with other mothers, whether they're breastfeeding or formula feeding. Every baby is different, every body is different, every mind is different. Try not to stress about watching the clock when you're supposed to be feeding your baby. Although this could be important if you have like a premature baby or a baby who you think might not be getting enough, then you do want to make sure that you're breastfeeding at least like every 2 to 3 hours. But for me personally, this is one of the main things that I tell everybody who asks me for breastfeeding advice. And I know not everybody agrees with this, but I breastfeed on demand. From the time that they're born until the time that they wean, it's pretty much 100% on demand. Regardless if you want to breastfeed on demand your entire breastfeeding life or not, it is super essential that you breastfeed on demand for at least those first 6 weeks. This could look very different. For some moms, their baby breastfeeds every 2 to 3 hours, 30 minutes, 10 minutes, and then we'll have a nice gap in between. But I would say that the majority of babies cluster feed, which means that they're gonna be on you for a significant amount of time. I promise you that it will end. There will come an end to the cluster feeding. Another piece of advice I try to tell new moms who are trying to breastfeed, who think that their baby isn't getting enough, when your baby is born, you have to remember that it is normal for them to lose weight. It's normal for them to not be up to their birth weight until they are 2 weeks old. It does not mean that they're not getting enough. Obviously, you need to go by your pediatrician's recommendation. Try, and I know this is super hard, but you really have to try to not stress about it. Stress will reduce your milk supply. Arguing with your husband when you're feeding, worrying about if they're getting enough, all of the stressful things that are going on in your life. My recommendation for new moms is to just chill out. And I know that that's like so hard, especially if you're a brand new mom, or if you're a new mom and you have a toddler, that's even more frustrating. But sometimes you just need to relax. Breastfeeding is a feeding thing, but it's also a bonding thing. Take yourself out of these stressful situations while you're breastfeeding. That will encourage your milk supply, that will encourage your experience with breastfeeding overall. Another thing that I tell people is that it's gonna hurt, but it should only hurt for the first 2 to 3 weeks. No matter how many babies I had, breastfeeding still hurt every single time for the first 2 weeks. However, the little bit of pain that you're in for those first 2 weeks is so beyond worth it for the benefits of your baby and for the benefits for yourself. Stick to it, get through it, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Another thing that I made sure that I tried to do was drink a ton of water. The more water you're drinking, the more milk you're gonna have, the more milk your baby gets, the more milk your body makes. Water is so good for you. Water is good for you no matter what, but when you're breastfeeding, you need like 4 times the amount of water. Anytime your baby's drinking, you should be drinking yourself. I know for me personally, I always got thirsty when I started breastfeeding, so I would make sure that I had a water bottle nearby, or if you have someone that can bring you a water bottle, you should definitely be consuming a lot of water. Also, if you're having a lot of trouble with your baby's latch, it may be worth asking your pediatrician about a tongue tie or a lip tie. Kaden, one of my twins who actually ended up nursing the longest, I found out months after I had been breastfeeding that he had a lip tie. His lip tie wasn't bad enough to fix, but I noticed a huge difference between the 2 twins' latches. Kyson, my older twin, always had a really good large latch, and Kaden, it hurts so bad every time you're breastfeeding. And if it's hurting while you're breastfeeding, 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna say the latch is wrong. If you do consult with your pediatrician about your baby having a lip tie or a tongue tie, it is a super easy fix and it will greatly benefit your breastfeeding life. Another thing that I had to tell myself is listen to your own body, go with your gut. You know your body best and you know your baby best. If you think that your baby is hungry but it hasn't been quite 3 hours yet, feed your baby. Your body knows what it needs to help encourage your milk supply, and your body knows what your baby needs. That is just my main advice. Like, if I could give you one piece of advice, it would just be to listen to your body and breastfeed whenever your baby wants to breastfeed. Another thing that really helped me, and this might be kind of weird to some of you guys, but this is something that I feel genuinely helped me with my breastfeeding supply. I actually made my placenta into a pill form. This is actually pretty common nowadays. I've noticed back when I did it, it was really hard to find someone to do it, but I know a lot of like midwives and people do this now. Placenta encapsulation is essentially where you consume your placenta, but in a pill form. You don't really taste anything. Honestly, they kind of smell funny, but you don't really taste anything. Not only does it lower your chances of postpartum depression, but it also increases your milk supply and it increases your energy. That was my personal experience with it anyway. I personally had a really good experience with it. I did not do it with my first child, but I did with the following children. And that's honestly one of the reasons why I feel like I had so much milk with the twins. It might sound a little gross, but every single mammal on planet Earth eats their placenta. Us being humans, we're not gonna just go and like chomp it up after. That's like really gross, but I would highly recommend it. People ask me what I did, that's what I did and it worked. If you are a breastfeeding mom and you pump sometimes, what your body is pumping, don't get discouraged by the amount that you're pumping out. A breast pump is a great way to express milk for your baby, especially if you're not able to breastfeed directly. However, a breast pump is just not as efficient as a baby's mouth, and it's almost guaranteed to be not as much as your baby's actually getting. So if you're pumping and you're thinking you're only getting a certain amount, your baby is most definitely getting more than that. Try not to stress about it. Another thing that I did that really helped me with breastfeeding, and I know that this can be a controversial thing, is I did it whenever the hell I wanted to, wherever the hell I wanted to, however the heck like I wanted to. I tried different positions. I didn't mind breastfeeding in public. With my first, I did use a cover some of the time, but after that, I really just didn't care. And I know a lot of people do care, and there's nothing wrong with that. Don't let anybody shame you for breastfeeding. Don't let anybody shame you for not using a cover, and don't let anybody shame you for using a cover either. Me personally, I just like pulled it out and I didn't really care, but there are some moms who are super conservative, and that's okay. You don't have to be open about breastfeeding. It's okay to do it however you're comfortable doing it. My last piece of advice that really made my life easier, it is okay, and I want you guys to take this with a grain of salt, but it's okay to drink alcohol while you're breastfeeding. Pumping and dumping is a 100% myth. Research it. There's also very little evidence that shows that your alcohol consumption goes into your milk supply at all. That being said, I'm not saying you need to go get face drunk every night, but it's okay to continue to live your life. A glass of wine here and there is not going to hurt the baby, and a can of beer is actually encouraged sometimes to help with your letdown. Again, this is just something that I've learned over the years after breastfeeding several kids, and I know that there are some things that breastfeeding limits you to do. For the most part, you can continue to live your life the way that you want to live it. You can exercise, you can consume alcohol once in a while. You do not need to dump that milk. You just need to be responsible about it. Those are my main tips to you. Those are all how I survived breastfeeding for almost 9 years. If you guys have any questions, I will be super happy to address those down in the comments, or you can tweet me, you can tag me on Instagram. I'm obviously super open about this. I don't mind talking about boobs at all. And I hope that you can take something from this video if you decide to go on a breastfeeding journey yourself. So that's it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow for our next video. Bye!